And now it's my pleasure to formally introduce our speakers today. First is Venkat Mantha. He is a senior professional with extensive experience in business development and in relationship management in the US, Europe, and the Middle East, and India. His initiatives have enabled Intertronics to win and expand several large nationwide contracts. Ritu Thakur, she is Vice President, Client Services, Intertronics Avanti Group. Rita is a senior account management professional with over 15 years of demonstrated success in staffing services industry, and she currently serves as Vice President managing strategic and market client relationships at Intertronics Avanti Group. And Kyle Laulo, who's Director of Client Services and Veteran Affairs at Intertronics. In this role, he's responsible for managing veteran talent attraction and care. And as a military spouse, he is passionate for building a veteran community, not only at Intertronics, but also in partnering with customers and veteran-focused organizations nationally. So I'm going to kick it over to Venkat right now and his team, and we can go from here. And welcome to the session.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you very much. Thank you to the CPAL Connect team. So thank you all for joining the Intertronics team at the CPAL Connect event. I do hope we can, during these 30-40 minutes, share two stories that can help have some very specific takeaways. But before that, an introduction of who we are. So Intertronics is a staffing company. We have been operating for over 30 years. We are part of the Intertronics Avanti Group, and we operate specifically within the large corporate MSP client markets. We are more than 950 billable strong in the US today. We are in a major growth phase and have for 2 years in a row, 2020 and 2019, made it to SIA's list of 100 fastest growing US staffing firms. Yes, CPAL indeed powers our recruitment engine, and its extensive features enable scalability and automation of our many tasks. We are committed to DEI. DEI has been the theme conference of this event, and I would like to reiterate the fact that we are acutely aware that what really matters is DEI in our workforce, external and internal, and therefore all our recruiting efforts. We, therefore, in this presentation, will talk a little bit about two specific areas where we bring in the elements of DEI into our daily activities. The first, a veteran hiring program. As part of a very intentional and a strategic diversity initiative, we began a formal veteran hiring program about 3 years ago. We like to share this journey. All of you may have heard of veteran hiring programs by large corporations. They are typically run by HR teams. Contingent staffing companies like ours usually find it a bit of a struggle to have veteran hiring programs. But we began the journey. Kyle will talk a little bit about why we started it and how we are doing it, plus the results, what we can do better, and the results that have enabled a 10% increase year over year in our veteran workforce. The second takeaway, a story of a project staffing in the pandemic era that shed light on the process excellence needed to succeed in that specific space, and which in the eyes of our client helped us make a little bit of an evolution from being yet another vendor into a partner to them. So among the positives of this very successful initiative was to drive up the DEI metrics in our workforce, especially women of color. It helped us make our internal work culture more inclusive. And more importantly, it re-emphasized the human element in our staffing industry. Of course, at the heart of both these initiatives is the power of technology platforms. From automating the matching of veteran applicants from our website to open jobs in the first case, or the second case, enabling fast-paced, high-volume staffing of a remote workforce. So with that introduction, I would like to start with our veteran hiring program. I'd love to introduce my colleague, Kyle Laulo. Kyle, can I turn the mic to you?
Yes, thank you, Venkat. Again, my name is Kyle Laulo, and to elaborate, I am Client Services Director for our Aerospace and Defense portfolio at Intertronics. and I also oversee our veteran hiring program. Veteran community and veteran talent attraction is very near and dear to my heart. I come from a military family, and I am also a military spouse. My wife is a retired major from the U.S. Air Force, so I've spent a lot of time in the military community, and I have a great appreciation for that culture, the sacrifice, and overall value of those who serve our country. So I'm proud to represent that and Indotronics. Thank you.
So, veteran talent attraction is a very intentional part of our overall DI strategy. So, Kyle, could you share our approach on to hiring veteran talent as a subset within the diversity sourcing at Indotronics?
Yes. So, veteran hiring is important to most companies in the US, and that's the primary reason why it's important to us. It matters to our customers. Veteran hires are typically a subset of a diversity strategy at any company. So because it's important to them, it's important to us, and it's spurred us to start our own veteran hiring program, as you mentioned, and grow it. But beyond that, in experiencing all of this, we've discovered that veterans are awesome candidates and awesome employees. They are very good at both leading and following. They take instruction very well. They understand leadership hierarchy. They have a keen instinct on how to take instruction, but also complete tasks and take initiative when they're not asked. Beyond that, something that might surprise people is veterans are very good with ambiguity. You might think that coming from a rigid environment like the military, where there's strict rules and regulations, would make someone need, strict rules and regulations in the real world or in the civilian world. But actually, the opposite is true. Veterans are very good with hurry up and wait because there's a ton of that in the military. And I can give you an example here at Indotronics. We have a huge customer, global, hundreds of thousands of employees. Their facilities employ thousands of employees. So you can imagine a new hire orientation day. There'll be 100 people there onboarding, and it's complete chaos. Nobody knows what's going on. A veteran is totally comfortable in that environment. They won't freak out. They'll wait to do what they're told, but they also have just an idea of, how to respond to things and not freak out. They don't panic. So we've learned that, and that we really appreciate that aspect. And then, finally, like I mentioned, they are good in a regulated environment. So certainly aerospace and defense, FAA, DoD type jobs, they're good in those kinds of regulated environments, but also finance and healthcare, they're good in those industries as well because there's so much rules and regulation.
Yeah, in fact, you bring up a very important point, Kyle. The aerospace and defense sector has been a great industry where veterans can come in soon after the military. They have the skills, they have the know-how, the environment is so much similar, etc. It's a great entry point. But having gone there, the other industries, finance, exactly as you mentioned, employs a lot of veterans in the workforce. Mm-hmm. So that's something which we have discovered along this journey. So coming to a little bit more detail on how are we aligning the veteran sourcing strategy with the fast pace of contingent staffing? I mean, veterans, as we discussed, are an inherent part of many corporate HR programs. Time is not as much of an essence there as it is in the case of contingent staffing. So how are we aligning these two things?
That's exactly right. So for a staffing company, time is not on our side. When we get a job from a customer, we have to react immediately. We source a candidate, submit that candidate, get them interviewed and hired. Otherwise, as a staffing company, we won't make money. So what that means for our veteran sourcing strategy is we need to be proactive and have our lines continually cast out in the water and farming veteran talent for when opportunities will come in the future. So how we do that is a number of different ways. But for starters, we use CPAL. We have a veteran application page on our website. It integrates with CPAL. Anytime a veteran applies, we get an alert notification from CPAL, and we go and look at that profile. We engage that candidate, and we get them ready for a future job that might come available. Beyond that, we work with transition assistance programs at military bases that are relevant to jobs we recruit for. There's over 200,000 military active duty members that separate each year from the military, and over 90% of them engage with their on-base TAPS program as they separate. So it's in our best interest to do work with those TAPS programs. And as an example, we partner with the TAPS program at Mountain Home Air Force Base. That's the home of the 366th Fighter Wing, which is F-15s. And it just so happens one of our customers makes F-15s. So those candidates coming out of that base are awesome for those jobs. So we engage with that TAPS program. They push candidates to us, the hiring events, things of that nature. On the civilian side, we engage with civilian veteran employment organizations, and there's thousands of them in the US. Most of them are very good. We engage with ones in geographical footprints that we hire in. So, for example, we do a lot of defense staffing in Texas. It's a huge defense state. And we engage with the Texas Veterans Commission, which is funded by the state of Texas. And they are great. They help veterans in Texas find jobs. So we post jobs with them. They have hiring events, and they push candidates to us all of the time. So yeah, those are a few ways that we proactively, try to keep up with the pace.
So how can that is something which we are doing to attract veterans into our workforce, into our pool. But internally, from within the recruiting efforts, what could we do better? What are things that any organization can take on and say, let's try this approach to attract more veterans into for whatever jobs they have?
So something we could do better, and I think most companies can do better, is paying attention to job descriptions and how those descriptions relate to tasks and duties in the military. So the vernacular used for skill sets in the military aren't the same as the equivalent in the civilian workforce. So whenever possible, we'll call that out in a job description, or we need to do a better job of it. But we try to make mention that experience gained through military service is acceptable for that aspect of that skill set in that job description. So it's a work in progress. We need to do more of it. There's a lot of work. You can only imagine, you have thousands of JDs you're pushing out weekly. It's a lot of work to do that each time. The flip side of that is recruiters. Our recruiters need to be trained in how to read a military resume. The skills called out in a military resume need to be understood by our recruiters as those skills relate to a civilian job. So there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of training to be done, and it's a work in progress.
Perfect. But overall, I think it has been very, very fruitful, very, very useful for us. How has, in addition to enabling, of course, an increase in the top line, how has it helped Indotronics as a company, as a service provider? What do you think has been the other benefits to us?
Definitely. So above all, it provides us with a DEI statistic that matters. We maintain our veteran hiring data in CPAL, and we can easily see how many veterans are applying and how many we're hiring. Our overall goal is to exceed 10% of our overall workforce as veteran hires. So we're averaging 9 to 11% at any given time, and we can run analytics on that through CPAL and provide that to our customers, which should be valuable to them, and it is. But also, we have that handy for when we are pursuing new opportunities with new customers. We're doing a bid or something like that. We have that data available, and it's important. So it's a valuable DEI statistic. And, like we've been talking about, veterans are awesome candidates. They are excellent employees. They onboard reliably, not a lot of hand-holding. They can go to a crazy orientation and not freak out, and they serve our customers well. And often, many times, they are the candidates that our customers will convert to a full-time employee. So, they're a great asset. And then overall, I can say that this program has enhanced our ability to fill roles that veterans are good candidates for, like program managers, cybersecurity type roles, all kinds of logistics roles. There's tons of logistics in the military, and those candidates are a perfect fit. And certainly, like aerospace and defense roles, uh, you know, aircraft technicians, mechanics, electrical technicians, they are, almost immediately a perfect fit for those jobs as well. So overall, it's been a great, journey, and we're looking to continue it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Kyle. So to the audience, if you have any questions, please put it up in the chat session. At the end of it, we will love to answer it. We do hope we'll have some time at the end of the entire discussion for quick Q&A. And of course, later on also, we can get back to you with the answers. So I'll now switch to the next topic, something which has been, which has occupied a lot of our attention over the last 18 months. So to give a backdrop of it, let's go back in time to April 2020. Less than a month after the lockdown, the environment was very, very uncertain. But at the same time, there were many new opportunities springing up everywhere. We are constantly reminded of how every crisis is also an opportunity. Sure enough, within weeks of the lockdown, one of our long-standing clients reached out to all the top-tier vendors with an opportunity for project staffing that was very specific to the pandemic. Specific in terms of skills and in all other aspects of deployment that were constrained because of the pandemic. The client needed a small subset of vendors to help them on that project, to help them manage the entire staffing on that project. They did forewarn us that while this would be a high volume, fast-paced staffing, it would also be potentially a low margin opportunity. But the way they put it was, it would demonstrate the commitment of vendors to truly think of themselves as their partners. Because there were a lot of moving parts that they themselves were trying to figure out. So they gave us a very interesting analogy. They said vendors broaden the path. They add lanes to highways that lead talent to clients. Partners, on the other hand, would not hesitate to lay down a new path, a new highway, connecting them to the new talent they wanted. Whatever be the analogy, vendor to partner evolution sounded very good to us, so we raised our hands. We got selected. We had to staff up a pretty high number of resources on day one, within 2 weeks of, or less than 2 weeks of them informing us, but do so every week to manage the flow of their work. Of course, technology was integral to being successful here. This was a high volume, fast-paced onboarding, offboarding, etc., etc. We had the technology in place. We had the people in place. We had our infrastructure in place. We knew we had a fair amount of scalability in our organization. And so therefore, from the investments we had previously made, we knew we could take it on. But knowing that on paper and executing it are two different things. 18 months on, our executive who led the exercise believes she can write a book on it. So that original project is now going to a steady state, but the learnings were so applicable, it is leading us to new businesses and other clients. And very important internally, it has increased our DI dramatically. So with that introduction, I'll turn the mic over to Ritu Thakur. Ritu, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you, Venkat, and thank you for the backdrop and sharing my secret of writing the book. So I have to write it now. Morning, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. My name is Ritu Thakur. I have been with Indotronics for 15 years. I manage few key strategic accounts for Indotronics. I have a very strong delivery team, and I'm really fortunate to lead them that helps in managing such high volume projects successfully.
Thank you. So coming down to the project itself, what were the specific challenges when we took it on the first week? What were the challenges? How did we overcome them?
Sure. So we faced a couple of challenges. To start with, the first challenge was really ramping up. As Venkat said, we raised our hand. We had no clue what we were signing up for. When we actually were given less than a week or so to hire 125 consultants for the first batch. And after that, the client expected us to hire 75 consultants every week. So to quickly ramp up to such a huge volume was a very big challenge for us. The second was the skill set. This was something new for us. Recruitment is not new, but the skill set was definitely new. We did not have the talent pool. We did not knew the challenges that come with the skill set. Just to give an example, there was a huge attrition rate and the dropout rate for the skill set. So how many people to source, hire, we really had to think through all those challenges. And the third that came across very quickly was a lot of candidates felt this was not a genuine project. I mean, if you are in their place, imagine I'm calling you, I'm telling you that you have a project which is remote. You are going to join probably less than a week. There is no interview. And on top of that, my HR is going to call you to get your personal information. Of course, a lot of candidates felt that this was not a genuine project. So that was also a very big challenge for us. Now, after realizing these challenges, we had to think, what do we do? Because we had committed, so we had to bring those resources on the table for the client because they were banking on us. So the first thing we did was, given the volume, given the pace, internally we actually set up a mini business unit. We had sourcers, we had recruiters, we had payroll team, we had HR team that were truly dedicated to this project 24/7. The second thing that we did was as I mentioned before, the skill set was new for us. So we used technology, we used CPAL to improve our talent pool. Once the candidates started coming on the project, we actually went back to them for referrals also. We worked really hard on improving the talent pool that we had for the skill set. And the third thing we did was communication. I mean, it might sound simple, but really on this project, we realized that you can never over communicate. The more we reached out to the candidates, the more we kept them in loop in terms of what's happening on their resume, what's happening on their application, on onboarding, when is the project starting, every small detail. The more we shared with the talent pool, with our candidates, the more comfortable they felt. So these are the few things that we basically did.
Awesome. So from and once we crossed the first set of hurdles, we realized we could meet the schedules, 125 in the first week, 75 week or whatever the numbers were, and then it came into a little bit of a steady state. We had things a little bit more under control. What are things which sort of sustained the project going on? How did we move smoothly thereon? Of course, it was never a smooth journey, but still relatively smoothly.
Yes, and you use the word steady state. I know the client said they are in steady state, but I think we are never in steady state. So basically, we started focusing on a couple of areas. We wanted to do it right. We wanted to do it well. So the first thing was we realized this is a 24/7 operations, and I'm not kidding. When I do account management, I tell my clients we are a 24/7 operations, but this project truly meant it. I've had calls from candidates call me at 11 p.m. or they've even called me at 4:30 a.m. And you have to be available. They want you, they need you. You have to be present. You have to help them. The second was flexibility, and what I mean by that is, as a vendor, we were flexible for our client. This was a new project for them. This was a new project for us. The learning curve was pretty similar for both of us. We told our client, whatever you need, whenever you need, we are here. Just to share simple examples, the client told us that after the 125 deployment, you have to do 75 candidates week on week. But depending upon the project need, upon the end client's need, there were times when they reduced that number or they increased that number. We were ready, we were flexible, whatever they needed, whenever they wanted to increase, we increased the number. Whenever they wanted to reduce, we reduced it. There were even a couple of times when, because of the end client's requirement, they changed the work timing. So can you imagine, I'm calling X number of candidates, convincing them that the work timing has changed and it's okay, and conveying the same thing to candidates I've hired and then to the new candidates. So we were flexible, basically. Whatever they wanted, we were there for them. And the third thing that we focused on was candidate experience. When you handle a project of this volume, this size, and this pace, most important, you sometimes might leave or forget the focus on the candidate. Internally, we were very clear. This was a remote project. We did not want anyone to feel lost or wonder what did they get into. So as a team, we made sure we focused on their experience, starting from sourcing to onboarding to once they start working on the project. We completely focused on making sure they felt comfortable.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, of course, this added pretty well to our top line. It was very nice, especially with the pandemic. At that time, we were not aware how the industry will evolve. It turned out that, of course, there's now a talent shortage. The industry has had a fantastic growth this year as well. But at that time, things were thinking, we were at least looking ahead. We were not sure how things would be. But it added to our top line. In addition to that, any other positive outcomes or anything you can talk about the outcomes in addition to the revenue part of it?
Sure, definitely, Venkat. So coming to the outcomes or what takeaway we have from the project, one of the things that made us aware was we can continue improving our internal efficiencies, internal processes. For example, just to give everybody an idea, last year we gave offers, we hired more than 2,500 candidates on this project. Now, when you talk this volume, it is not easy to onboard, to offboard. We went into paying them weekly, so we had to change that internally. So it kind of made us realize where we can improve, what we can reduce to make it as a lean and mean machine. Even on the paperwork, we use CPAL. It's a fantastic onboarding tool. But HR realized that there were a lot of paperwork, or we can actually improve on the package to make sure the candidates do not struggle much on filling lengthy paperwork. It's much quicker and the turnaround time is less. The second thing that came out of it was new opportunities. We learned from this project. We took the success from this project to our existing clients as well as new clients. And I'm happy to say, I'm proud to say that we currently we have new projects that we are working on for different clients. And I think we are managing them well. The third thing that came out of this project was, managing or learning how to manage remote workforce, the do's and don'ts of it. As Venkat mentioned earlier, it's easier said than done. And we quickly realized on that. But now, after 18 months, we truly know what are the do's and don'ts of managing such a high volume project remotely. And Venkat, I want to add that apart from these, there were some unintended blessings, if I can say. So for example, our DEI numbers. When we started hiring for this workforce and once we looked at our numbers, we realized that a large percentage of our workforce is women and women of color. A lot of the candidates, apart from that, a lot of the candidates came to us. This project started when the pandemic hit. It affected the hospitality service industry big time. A lot of candidates came to us, thanked us for bringing this project to them, which was long-term, which was remote, which was 40 hours a week, and then they are going to get weekly paychecks. So that was also a very good blessing that came out of this project. And lastly, just to kind of wrap it up for everyone, one thing that we all learned from the project was never forget empathy. Technology helped us in ramping up. It helped us in running the project fast, but there were instances that kept on happening, or we had so many cases that kept on reminding us that human is right front and center. And if I may share with the group, there were actually one case where we came to know that there was a mother with 2 kids. She was living in a motel. The motel was evicting her because she couldn't pay for her stay. The minute we realized, we quickly got into action. We paid for a couple of days of her stay. We told her, don't worry, we are here, whatever you need, whenever you need, we are around. So I think that was a very important thing. Don't forget empathy. Don't forget, in the end, it's human relationship.
Actually, yeah, absolutely. So at the end, it was an experience on humanity and humility, the human element, which is so much core to our industry.
Yep.
So
Yes.
anyway, thank you all.
Yes, I'd like to thank all 3 of you for such a great session, and just adding the human element is incredible. And we all need to remember, at the end of the day, we're all human, and the event of the pandemic just happened so quickly, and we pivoted, and we're all human. So Ritu, thank you so much for sharing your story.